Robin Hood Radio presents Stage Right or Not with Michele Willens. Michele is a longtime journalist and herself is a published playwright of several theatrical works. She's a frequent contributor to the Huffington Post, Daily Beast, and the Atlantic websites.
So another busy week for those who see, read, or care about theater. That would be me, and mine included 3 new productions, a touching memorial for a giant in that community, and a few books. Well, let's start at the always interesting Irish Rep on West 22nd Street. Downstairs in their very small venue is a one-man piece called The Smuggler, a thriller in rhyme. It seems we are sitting in a pub, I think in Massachusetts, and sure enough, Tim Finnegan, as portrayed by one Michael Melamfi, appears and starts mixing drinks, even offering a few to audience members before the lights go down. I recall John Lithgow's advice to anyone doing a one-man show: always connect with someone in the audience, in the eye. Melamfi does this very well, as he recounts a winding tale that aims to qualify as a true crime mystery, dealing with immigrants, several women, even a mysterious tree. I saw some eyes closing at times as it goes on a bit too long, but as with most things Irish, some lovely words are strung together. I go to the place where dreams disappear. I'm not a racist, but I've got some cultural insensitivity. You are the smuggler now. As for the rhyme in the title, that's a stretch, but yes, every once in a while you realize that much of this, though not quite enough, has waxed poetic. Now, sticking with the one-man show theme, I caught yet 2 more of those. First up, there is comedian Colin Quinn's latest at the Lucille Lortel Theater in the West Village. It's called Small Talk. Something Quinn says kiddingly is down 87% in the latest markets. The show wanders around to incorporate just about everything we live with these days. Social media, your browsing history is who you are. Politics, how the left and right are their own cults, and the distorting dangers of technology. He talks about doing poorly in algebra. Why are there letters? And even clothing. I'm an old man dressed like a 12-year-old boy. And if you're in the HR world, forget about this show. Quinn's funniest riffs deal with that arena. The audience laughs pretty much from start to finish. James Fovell directs, and the production on a bare stage feels pretty much like a comedy club. It's a pleasant and ultimately rewarding 90 minutes. The other show I saw is called Without You at New World Stages on West 50th. Now, this is a musical memoir by Anthony Rapp. He was one of the original stars of Rent. For fans of that iconic show, and there are many who can't get enough of those seasons in love, this piece will be a nostalgic reminder. Rapp basically is telling us about the loss of the 2 most important people in his life at that time: his mother, whom he visited often in Illinois, and Jonathan Larson, the brilliant creator of Rent, who died just as the show was opening. Rapp's voice feels strained at times, and the overall theme feels somewhat repetitive and manipulative. But hey, I applaud anyone who gets up on a stage to tell his or her story, not to mention anyone who appreciates their mom. The response to this one has been largely positive, even while tears are being shed. And speaking of tears, I shed a few while spending 2 moving hours at the Peter J. Sharp Auditorium at Juilliard. That was for the memorial, celebration of the life of Robert Lapone. He began as a dancer, yes, in a chorus line. Then he taught acting and eventually made his name as a co-founder of MCC, which is now located on West 52nd. I met him years ago, but I went because, well, how can I say this? I love how theater folks do these events. Not only because of the famous people participating, but they really know how to produce. So here we watched video of many aspects of Lupone's career. Who knew he was on a soap opera? We also got a beautiful dance number, a few lovely singers, and mostly the memories of so many, including actors Hallie Pfeiffer, who said, "He made space for me as a playwright." Judith Light, who said, "He was my champion," as well as Lupone's co-workers, longtime friends, and his wife. All included humorous stories. Actor and former Lupone student Patrick Breen said, "This man had a black box theater in his apartment." They all talked about Lupone's excellent judgment, not always easy to take. He could come at you hard, but he trafficked in the truth, said one speaker. Yes, if you're wondering, he was a brother of Patti LuPone, who did not speak or sing, but I believe she was there. As for more books coming and arriving right as we speak on the theatrical shelves, one is by Julian Schlossberg, who has produced or worked with virtually everyone throughout his life. He has a memoir now which is chock full of famous names and dishy stories. More on this next week, as I'll be meeting Schlossberg at, well, where else? Sardi's this week. And I'm also into one called Pinter and Stoppard, A Director's View. This is written by Carrie Perloff. Now, she's worked with both titans of that world, and this one really takes you inside the process of bringing their words to the stage. What I learned from Pinter during rehearsals in New York gave me a set of parameters that I have used ever since, Perloff writes. She says it was Pinter who got her into the theater and Stoppard who kept her there. So, Jill, things are happening as we move into transition time. Show's going down, many getting ready to come up.
Has anything left that you miss and wish that hadn't gone?
Well, the Music Man left, but what can you say? They did a year of it. You can't complain about that. What else? Well, no, most of them closed on time, I would say. Death of a Salesman went down. Piano Lesson just went down. Top Dog, Underdog, I believe, did.
I'm asking the wrong question, I think. Some of those were limited runs, yes?
Well, they say that. You know, that's not to say I think.
Well, the Music Man wasn't, for example.
No.
To kill him off. So I guess my question more accurately should be, did any non-limited runs, such as the Music Man, is there anything that is that didn't catch on quite the way it was expected, or is it?
Well, sure. I mean, we talked about One More Time that closed in a few weeks. There were a number of them that closed early. I think the biggest surprise for me was Leopoldstadt not closing. That was originally considered a limited run, I believe, and that is now going, I think, through the summer. That one has picked up a lot of steam. Speaking of Tom Stoppard, as we just were, that one has surprised me that on the flip side, that how long it has kept going, which I wouldn't have predicted. I have to think of what else has closed that might have surprised me. Take Me Out, I think, is closing for the second time. Well, they've extended from Riverside to Crazy, which I reviewed last week. That's a good one. Kimberly Akimbo is remaining up, though I heard it's not making money, so I would expect that could go down any time. Or we could see a closing with Kimberly. Anyway, I'm trying to think. You know, we're getting to Tony time now, where Tony
time should have its own little theme. Tony time.
Yeah. Well, they have to see all the shows now, so they're being sent to one show after another. Some of the voters are frustrated because a lot of those shows did close before they had time to see them, and then they're not really allowed to vote unless they've seen them all. So that's going to be a confusing one. Those nominations come out in May. That's going to be very interesting to watch this year. I'm trying to think what else, if there's anything else that surprised me closing earlier. I don't think so. But, it's a tough time right now. We got through January. That's the good news. We pretty much got through January.
I know, and every time you say this, I actually end up saying the same thing, which is, just cast your mind back 11 years.
Yeah.
For example. And January was always, January was always difficult. It's my favorite word. It's a good word. I could say difficult. I could say complicated. It's January in that world.
That's right. Tourists go home. The weather gets colder. And of course, now you have the added thing hovering over, that they're still nervous about, a lot of people are still nervous about sitting in a theater. They just called up, I think I mentioned this last week, the one at St. Anne's Warehouse was coming back, The Jungle, which had been a huge hit before. But they've now put that off because of, they said, the COVID thing. So I don't know.
Do you think it's COVID, or do you think that some audiences have changed?
Well, it could be both.
Or let me rephrase it, because that's actually foolish. Yeah. I think COVID. I'm asking, do you think that the people who are coming to the theater without question and just, enjoying themselves. By the way, did that mask, some masked performances, who is that masked man, ever take off or no?
Well, certain shows you go to, like where I went yesterday, Irish Rep, they're not mandating it anymore. Private companies are allowed to do whatever they want. Roundabout, anything that's not part of the Broadway League has their own rules. And for a long time, most of them were mask mandated, or now some of them are not. So there are two separate entities here. The small, private nonprofits can do whatever they want. I would say I haven't seen any mask mandated shows lately. Most of them are saying, up to you, do what your neighbors are doing or whatever. But so far, well, I would say one show that closed early, to get back to that question, was Almost Famous. Was I surprised? No, because I didn't care for it either. But I still thought the name of the movie would keep it going. That closed almost instantly. And that's a lot of money you're talking about, down the drain. I went by the booth the other day, which I like to do on weekends or matinee days, just to see what shows are up there. Pretty much the only shows you can't get a seat for, Leopoldstadt was up there, I will say that. Hadestown was up there, I believe. You still can't get a seat for Funny Girl. Boy, talk about a show that was saved by one person, I will tell you. So you can't get a show, and Hamilton, the usual five, Hamilton, Wicked, Lion King. But now Funny Girl is up there. I heard that was making almost $1 million a week. So thank you, Lee and Michele, for bringing that back,
Yeah, that's that was how often. The one time I remember that happening was that doesn't mean that it was. It's just that, but this is way back when Annie Get Your Gun. I think Reba McEntire came in after Bernadette Peters.
Absolutely, and she was a better fit, even though Bernadette was a bigger name. Reba, a bigger name in the Broadway world.
Yes, and all I'm talking about is not is the energy, which is essentially the a nice way of saying the better fit is a nice way of saying just different energy, different person, different energy, different. It's different.
That's a great one. We have to look back and see if there's some other ones where the person who came in, I'm not talking about Lee and Michele because I think they always wanted her and they miscast the first one. But I think, that it hasn't been that often we know that understudies sometimes become stars, but that's a little different than.
That's different than a replacement that
right.
comes along and says, right.
This is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and where people, it's this is a poor example, I'm sure, but like a good meal when you have a proper omelet, you go, oh right, that's what it's meant to taste like.
Well, speaking of Funny Girl, I'm reading a new book just coming out that I'm reviewing about the way we were because it's celebrating its 50th anniversary. And there's a lot of Streisand stories in there, and maybe I'll talk about those next week.
Stage Right or Not with Michele Willens, produced in the studios of Robin Hood Radio, robinhoodradio.com.